In today's video, I'm going to explain everything you need to know about UK ISAs. I'm going to talk about how they work, the different accounts that you can open alongside their benefits, and some really important things that you need to know before opening your first ISA account. Because at the end of the day, with the amount of options now out there, I can understand why people think they are complicated, but I'm hoping this video can be your all-in-one place for understanding everything you need to know. So let's start with the obvious, which is of course, what is an ISA and why should everyone have one? Okay, so the letters ISA first of all stands for Individual Savings Account, and whilst it sounds a bit fancy, all it basically is an account that you can save or invest your money inside and you will never have to worry about paying tax on anything. Basically, every tax year that runs from the end of March to the start of April, you will get an allowance which you can contribute to that ISA, and when the new tax year rolls around, that amount will reset. Now for the current tax year of 2023 to 2024, the maximum you can add to your ISA is £20,000, and one really important thing to note is that this is an allowance that will not roll over. So for example, if you only added £10,000 in your first year, this does not mean that the following year's allowance will be £30,000, it will be reset back to £20,000 or whatever limit the government decides to set for that current tax year. Another thing to note is that as long as your money is inside your ISA account, it's always going to be completely free of any tax benefits. However, if you do decide to take any money out, your ISA allowance won't increase, it will stay the same until it's time to reset at the start of the next year. Now when it comes to where you can open up an ISA, pretty much every single bank in the UK has different types of ISA accounts that you can open, so let's go through them now, starting with the first one, which is a cash ISA. And basically a cash ISA is as straightforward as it gets, and as the name states, it's an account where you can just store your cash. Cash ISAs are really good because let's say you decided to open a standard savings account, so not one inside an ISA, and you had lots of different savings. What you have to be wary of is the personal savings allowance set by the government, and if your interest was to go over this allowance, you would have to pay tax on it. As of right now, the allowance is currently set at £1,000 in interest earned for the basic rate taxpayers and £500 for people on the higher rate. However, if you were to open a cash ISA, you will never have to worry about paying tax on any interest, and any interest earned within your ISA will not count towards your personal savings allowance either. Now when it comes to cash ISAs, there's actually more options and different varieties that you can go for, and the two main types that you can go for is number one, an easy access ISA, where you can essentially put your money in and access it whenever you need without any penalty, and number two is the fixed rate ISAs, where you can lock your money away in return for typically a higher interest rate, but if you wanted to withdraw your money, you will usually have to pay an interest penalty. Generally speaking, the longer you lock your money away for, the higher rate that you will get, but you lose the freedom of having access to your cash immediately. Now in terms of who cash ISAs benefit the most, I would say that while savings rates have risen in terms of their interest, there are still better ways in which you can grow your wealth, but they still have a place for everyone. Personally, I would recommend cash ISAs to those that may have an upcoming payment coming up very soon, but still want to earn a little bit of interest on their money while they wait to pay it. Now the next ISA I'm going to talk about is the Stocks and Shares ISA. Once again, if the name hasn't given it away already, this is an account where you can use your ISA limit, but instead of just storing your money away in a bank account, you can put it to work by investing in things such as individual stocks, funds, which are basically a combination of individual stocks as one, or bonds, which is basically a loan to the government. Now I would say the big difference, I guess, between cash ISAs and these ones is that there is going to be an element of risk involved with your money. This is because you're investing it, but the potential returns are much greater. Now I have to say, a Stocks and Shares ISA is my personal favourite, and it's actually where I put 99% of my allowance, but do stick around as it all depends on your personal situation as to what ISA type is best for you. But typically speaking, the general idea for those opening up a Stocks and Shares ISA is to approach this with a long-term mindset, and what you will normally find is that investing for, let's say, a 5-year period will smooth out the ups and downs that you will normally see on a weekly or monthly basis. Now if you did want to go ahead and open up a Stocks and Shares ISA, you would typically have to do this with what is called an investing platform, and there are a few things that you need to weigh up when choosing the best one for you. For example, some platforms charge fees for every single trade that you decide to make, some have annual management charges, and some also have fees that if you were to decide to transfer your money from another provider, you would get charged for it. What I've done is put a link below to a website that compares all the different top accounts that you can open, but personally I suggest taking a look at the platform I currently have my Stocks and Shares ISA with, and that's going to be Trading212. I say this because I think it's a really good beginner friendly platform and one of the cheapest platforms on the market in terms of fees, and if you do decide to use my referral link, which will be in the description down below, and you make your first deposit, even if it's just £1, we would both receive a free share worth worth up to £100 for doing so. Once again, I have to say that your money is going to be at risk, and do seek professional advice if you feel the need to do so. But overall, stocks and shares ISAs are a great way to build long-term wealth without having to worry about giving any money back to the taxman. Now, next on the list of ISAs is the lifetime ISAs, and this is a fairly new one to the list of options. In fact, the lifetime ISA was actually only launched in 2017, and the reason for the creation of the product was all around helping those who were either looking to buy their first house or those that were looking to retire. These are still very similar to the other ISAs in the fact that your gains are going to be completely tax-free, but unlike the traditional cash ISA and the stocks and shares ISA, there are going to be a few extra things that you need to know about the lifetime one. Firstly, you only have a £4,000 limit each tax year, unlike the £20,000 that you get with the others. And secondly, you have to be between the ages of 18 and 39 if you would like to open one. Now, when it does come to the lifetime ISA, the great thing about them, and why I think they are so helpful for those looking to buy their first house or retire, is that every single bit of cash that you put in, all the way up to that £4,000 limit, the government will add a 25% bonus on top of the amount that you've saved. So for example, if you've managed to save £1,000, they will add £250 on top of that before any interest growth that you may receive. For some people, looking at it as a 25% guaranteed return on any investment is a much safer and better way to beat the returns of, let's say, investing into stocks and shares. However, one thing I have to say is there are going to be a few limitations to actually make this possible. The first one, of course, I've already mentioned it, and that is the maximum of £4,000 that you can invest in just 1 year. This obviously limits you to a maximum of £1,000 that the government can add every single year, whereas if you were to invest, let's say, £20,000 into a stocks and shares ISA, there's a chance that you could make more money. And the second one is that if you were to withdraw your money and you weren't either buying a house with it or retiring, you would face a penalty of 25% on your money, which effectively works out to an overall loss of around 6%. Now, if you were interested in opening an account like this, I've listed some places on the side here that offer a lifetime ISA, but just make sure you understand the rules before you start committing money into them. Next up, we have the Innovative Finance ISA, and I would say out of all the ISA options, this is the least talked about. Essentially, what this is a place where you can lend money to other people, and by other people I mean businesses, and the interest that you make from that loan will be completely tax-free. Now, to open up one of these ISAs, you will need to be over 18, and because you are lending your money to somebody other than the government or banks, this one is going to come with an element of risk. And whilst you will see better returns being shouted about online, I personally am going to stay away from this type of ISA. For me, I just think there's too much risk involved, and they haven't been around long enough to show proven long-term results, and with all the other safer options out there that can still bring you some great returns, sometimes being greedy can get you in trouble. So with that said, I'm going to bring this part of the video to an end and leave a link in the description down below with a full breakdown guide just in case you were interested in diving a little deeper. Now, the final ISA that we have to talk about before I move on to some critical ISA must-knows, so stick around for that, is the Junior ISA, commonly known as a JISA. Once again, just like the other naming conventions, they've made it pretty obvious who's it for, and that's essentially an ISA set up for your kids. And this one actually sits outside of the £20,000 ISA limits that the others have, and right now you can save up to £9,000 inside your Junior ISA, but also at the same time max out your £20,000 in your other accounts. This is obviously because you are investing or saving money on behalf of your child, and it will be in their name and they're going to have extra allowances. One limit of this, however, is that your child cannot actually touch this money until they turn 18, although they can take control of the account at age 16. One really strange scenario around this account and other ISA limits is that if your child is either 16 or 17 years old, they actually get access to both the ISA allowances for themselves. So firstly, they get the 9k in their Junior ISA, and they also get the 20k in their cash ISA. However, one thing I have to say is that if you're either 16 or 17 years old and you're making enough to save this amount of money, you must either be a footballer or you're doing something extremely right. For me, the glass collecting job at the campsite wasn't enough to make this even a talking point, but let's move on. On the screen right now, what you can see are all the current best options in terms of places to open a Junior ISA, but just like all the other accounts, make sure you do your research beforehand. So with that said, that's the list of different ISAs that you can get right now. Before I do let you go though, let's go ahead and do some quick fire tips and must-knows about ISAs in general so that you can maximize your savings and avoid any headaches. The first one, which I think is a really big one, is that whilst your limit is £20,000 in terms of what you can put in every year, the account can grow to as much as you want it to. For example, if you invest £15,000 into a stocks and shares ISA and it makes £5,000 in the first year, you haven't used up all your limit, you can still add another £5,000 before the limit resets. The £20,000 is how much you can add every year, not how much you can actually make. That's unlimited. The second one is that you can actually have multiple ISAs, but the thing to remember is that they can't go over that £20,000 limit in terms of what you put in. This means that if you wanted to put, let's say, £10,000 into a cash ISA and £10,000 into a stocks and shares ISA, you can absolutely do this. Remember, the limit is across all your accounts combined, not based on an individual basis. And the third thing to remember is that if you did want to switch ISA providers throughout the year, try not to withdraw your cash and put it into your new account. This is a really quick way of using up your allowance without actually adding any new money. Instead, what I would suggest doing is looking to see if they have a transfer feature with their account, or alternatively, just keep your money inside the old provider and keep tabs on how much you've added. Remember, you can change providers as much as you want inside an individual tax year, just make sure that you stay under that 20k limit. But there we go. Hopefully this video has broken down ISAs as a whole for you and gives you an idea on the type of ISA that you think you should open. The only last words for me are simple, and that is basically whatever account you do go ahead and open, try your best to maximize the use of the £20,000 limit as much as you possibly can. I know in a lot of cases you may not be able to maximize this, but this is a free allowance that gets reset every single year and you won't get it back, and it will only help you in the long run the more that you decide to save or invest. Other than that, I'd really appreciate it if you are still here to drop a like on the video if you found it useful. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok for more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.